Hello and welcome to the commentary box. Hello and welcome back. Of course, I am Sam Turner, your host for today's podcast related to all things football. Sadly, Jake Griffiths cannot make it today, so you'll be stuck with me once again. I hope that doesn't upset you too much. But today we are going to be talking about the opening Premier League weekends, the title race in the Premier League, and whether you would agree it would be a two-horse race this year. And then we'll be off into Europe and other destinations across the world, where we'll be looking at where else will be interesting for football fans to keep an eye out, apart from, of course, the Premier League. So sit back and relax and enjoy this podcast. So, of course, the Premier League has kicked off, and it kicked off with quite the bang, with Manchester United beating Leicester 2-1. I was lucky enough to watch the match and see the first goal, with Pogba scoring a penalty. It was quite a controversial penalty. I think it was Armati shouldered the ball, you could say, purposely. And for me, that accounts to a penalty because it was a kind of lower shoulder, but you could see why it wouldn't be given as well. But the penalty was given, and Pogba coolly delivered it, unlike how he's coolly delivering his, his transfer rumours, I guess. I don't know. Because he, of course, could be on the way out of Man United, which looks to be a rumour, or I have no idea whether it's just a rumour or not, but be interesting to see what happens. So to start the football podcast, it's going to be all-inclusive, really. We're going to talk about and try to talk about every team and every game. We won't do this often, but seeing that it's the opening game, I think it's only fair that we give everyone a bit of coverage. Of course, we did give everyone a bit of coverage already in the previous podcast, which you can go check out, and that could have featured your opinions, and it definitely featured my opinions and my predictions, as well as Jake's predictions for the upcoming Premier League season, which has already kicked off, of course. So please do go check that out. The link will be in the description, or you can find it on iTunes, of course, which is, you can look in the description as well. There should be a link there, and you can find it on YouTube, etc., etc. So do check that out. But yes, Man United Leicester, I think we saw a good Man United side, an efficient one. Luke Shaw, it was great to see him score on his, I guess, not in his comeback, but his kind of first game for him to prove that he's good again. It was really good to see him score and get some praise from Mourinho. Not sure if he meant the little chip past the defender, but either way, it was a coolly finished goal. And as for Leicester side, they were okay. I think they could have got more out of the game, but they do look like a side that can develop, especially with the youth of Maddison and Gray. I think they look really vibrant, and I think Gazelle. Gazri, I think, looked really, really comfortable on the ball when he came on, because he's one of Leicester's new signings. And then as for Man United, they were efficient. They did go a bit defensive after they scored their first goal and let Leicester come on to them, but they did secure the win, and that's all you can really ask for. I think they will do all right this season. As for Leicester, I think they'll do okay if they can gel a bit more, I reckon. Then on to, of course, Newcastle versus Tottenham. It ended 2-1 to Tottenham. It was no signings versus cheap signings, I'm kind of calling this match, because, of course, Newcastle have been trying to make a few bargains in the transfer market. Of course, they brought in Solomon Rondon on loan. They've got Ki Sung-yong on a free. I don't think they splashed the cash out on the new Japanese striker Muto. But they did look okay in this game against Tottenham. Joselu, of course, opened up the scoring. But I think Tottenham just outclassed them. I don't think it was anything to do with Newcastle's tactics. I think it was just the fact that Tottenham were the better team almost. Vertonghen and Dele Alli, of course, getting on the goals. I think Newcastle will be safe because Benitez, of course. As for Tottenham, after watching them on Match of the Day, or at least on highlights, I think they'll be fine as well to get into the top four. However, I think they might struggle early on in the season. I know against big sides potentially, because of course they had a lot of players going, of course, on international duty, and they haven't been able to sign anyone as backup. So it'd be interesting to see how they do early on. Of course, Kane normally has a little bit of a dry patch versus in August, so maybe his dry spell will continue to be like that in August because of international stuff. But yeah, that's that game. The next game, of course, was Bournemouth versus Cardiff, which ended Bournemouth 2, Cardiff 0. Fraser getting on the goal sheet for Bournemouth twice. This was kind of a nothing game. It was a game that Cardiff would have wanted to win to opening their season, and a game they would have been probably targeting to win at the beginning of the season. And as for Bournemouth, again, the same for them. I think it'll be a game that they're targeting to win. Both sides did fairly well. I think the possession was even and shots were even, but Bournemouth just kind of edged, and maybe they showed their Premier League experience a bit more than Cardiff, and it's a similar kind of story for the next game we'll be talking about. But yeah, it was a bit of a nothing game, really. Fulham versus Crystal Palace, a very similar game to Cardiff versus Bournemouth, but this game was more so the Premier League experience than the Bournemouth game. Fulham played absolutely wonderful in the first half, and they looked unstoppable, and they looked like a real threat in attack. And I really liked how Sessegnon, Ryan Christie, basically Mitrovic, Carney, Seri, Schürrle, all those players kind of mixed together in attack. I know Cyrus Christie's a fullback, but he got involved a lot. I really liked the looks of that, and I still have them down to finish 7th in my mind, or at least in the top 10. But they were kind of shown a welcome back to the Premier League. I think, actually, interestingly enough, Fulham's last game in the Premier League was against Crystal Palace. But yeah, Crystal Palace showed them a bit forcefully how it is to be back, because they basically pounced on any chances they had, and they duly scored them, and it ended, of course, Crystal Palace 2, Fulham 0. It was a classic Crystal Palace performance. They only had 33% possession. And on the news, Zaha has just signed a contract to Crystal Palace, so if you're a Crystal Palace fan, I would be very happy with this start of the season. Next game is also 2-0. It was Watford 2, Brighton 0, and I got to give Watford a bit of credit here, because I haven't got them down to do that well, but they performed brilliantly, and actually so much so that on the poll we ran on our Twitter page, which is @Box Commentary, which you can get involved in, we asked you which Premier League team has impressed you the most this opening weekend, and the options were Liverpool, Manchester City, and Watford and Chelsea, and the majority of you voted for Watford, or the most of you voted for Watford with 49%, with Liverpool only getting 37%, Manchester City only getting 10%, and Chelsea only getting 4%. So I think I owed a bit of credit for Watford, really, because they looked brilliant. Pereira got a brace. Delafeu looked good. I think overall Watford under Gracia might be doing better than I thought. Brighton, I think if I'm a Brighton fan, I'll be very disappointed, because I'm surrounded by Brighton fans here where I live. I'm down in Sussex, and I'm pretty sure they would not be happy, especially with the signings they've made. They just did not turn up, and hopefully they can turn it round in the next game. Next on to Chelsea versus Huddersfield. Chelsea were very efficient, very, very attacking. Basically a Sarri side in that game. They played like Sarri would have wanted them to, and they actually kept a clean sheet as well. I think if you didn't see my Community Shield reaction, you could go check that out. I talked a bit about Chelsea there, and my opinions on how Chelsea will do, of course, in the other podcast as well. But I think Chelsea were very, very good for their money. Jorginho scored on his Premier League debut from the penalty spot, and they thrashed Huddersfield. I don't think Huddersfield have too much to be worried about, though, this early on, as it is Chelsea. The next game was Wolves 2, Everton 2, and again, someone has proved me wrong. I was saying, at least to my dad before the game and during the first 10 minutes of this one, that Richarlison was not worth the money, not worth 50 million really. I think I even said he might be worth 20, but not 50 for sure. But I think I'm going to have to take back that statement, unless he obviously flops in the next few games, which I hope not. But Ricky van Wolfswinkel, if you remember, for Norwich, did something similar where he scored, I think, at least 2 goals, or at least a goal on his debut, and never scored again. But hopefully it won't happen for Richarlison, but he was deadly. Wolves looked amazing as well. I think they'll be good this season, of course, with their new signings. And it was a really exciting game, really, because, of course, Jagielka got sent off. Definite red card for me. yeah, I think both teams will be a force to be reckoned with. Next game, Southampton 0, Burnley 0. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Didn't really see a lot of the highlights. It was a bit of a nothing game, more so than the Bournemouth Cardiff one. And if I'm a Southampton fan, I'm thinking we still haven't scored at home for well, of course they have scored at home recently, but they didn't score again today. I'd still be worried if I was a Southampton fan. Burnley, good result for them. Going to be tired from Europe, but yeah, they've done well here. Liverpool beat West Ham, and when I say beat, they thrashed West Ham. They won 4-0. A new-faced West Ham, and a welcome back. Basically, faced a welcome to the Premier League because, of course, all the new players probably hadn't played in the Premier League before, apart from perhaps Fabianski, of course. Love Fabianski for Swansea, just because I'm a Swansea fan, and he was a rock at the back for us. There's a big pole in our goal, but there's lots of new faces for West Ham, and it's a welcome to the Prem for them, really. I heard Needson Anoa, the ex-QPR fullback, on the Football Daily BBC podcast, and he said that basically he saw Pellegrini's tactics at work, of course, because he must follow Manchester City a bit when he left, Pellegrini took charge, and he saw that it will get better with West Ham under Pellegrini, and he can really install some nice tactics. So I'm looking forward to seeing West Ham this season. It's a bit of a kind of a whoa for them, a lot of their players meeting Liverpool in their first game, but yeah, I think they'll be alright. Liverpool wise, they really, really impressed me so much. All their new signings started, and they just looked unstoppable. And as we'll talk about later, I think they are one of the only teams that can threaten Manchester City this year. And then on to the last game of the weekend. It was Arsenal 0, Manchester City 2. And if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't be too displeased. Of course, Manchester City are the holders, and you have to play on the first game. I think there are some positives. They did look a bit more of a grittier side, especially with the likes of Lichtsteiner in there. Bit odd that Welbeck was touted to play at left back. I'm not sure if he did in the end because I only saw the highlights. But I think they'll do fine, Arsenal. Don't worry, Arsenal fans. I think I'll be happy, especially with the new manager, the new transfers in, and only losing 2-0 to Manchester City. As for Manchester City, box standard, just very good football. So yeah, that ends our first kind of topic of the season as such. I hope you enjoyed kind of listening to that. But now we'll be talking about, of course, the title challenge. I know it's a bit early to mention title challenge, but in my head at least, and I've seen a few other predictions, people already have their title kind of rivalries in their head, and I want to say already that it's going to be a 2-horse race, and that is not because I think that all the other teams are not improving. I think it's just the two teams I believe that are going to be in this title challenge have improved way much more. So I think the 2-horse race will be, of course, between Manchester City and Liverpool. Liverpool have strengthened a lot this summer. They brought in Keita, who's come from Leipzig. Of course, he signed. I guess you could say signed, or his sale was agreed about a year ago now. But he's finally in the team. After spending a year at Leipzig. Fabinho from Monaco is in the bus as such. Shaqiri and Alisson, I love Alisson as well, ex-Roma keeper, are also in the bus, and they look like a side that have really sorted out their weaknesses. I think last season, of course, goalkeeper-wise, they weren't too bad. But I think with Karius' confidence gone right downhill, I think they needed a new keeper to really firm up their choices in centre-back, not centre-back, in goalkeeper and defend in the defensive area to really give the whole back line a bit more confidence. They probably needed a bit of backup for Mane, Firmino and Salah after Coutinho left, so Shaqiri's brought in. I think that's a bargain for what they got him for. They needed a bit more meat in the midfield. Of course, Henderson, and of course, last year it would have been what's his name? I can picture him now. Chan. Emre Can for them, but of course Emre Can has left, and it's kind of left a gap in the defensive midfield area, so I think Keita and Fabinho will fit in there really well, and Keita obviously adds another area of attack as well, so it's a bit more like a Henderson, a bit more flair player though, of course. As for Manchester City, do they even need to strengthen? I know they brought in Mahrez, but they haven't strengthened so much because they were so strong last season. Of course, they brought in Mahrez, but you know my opinions on Mahrez. I think he'll fit into the side, and I think he'll do really well for them. But he won't be a star for them, if that makes any sense. He'll be a good backup player. The only thing I'm concerned about with Manchester City in their title race, unlike Liverpool, who've got a lot of depth, I think they do lack a bit of depth, and I know that's odd to say, but what if Fernandinho gets injured? Of course, he plays a pivotal role as kind of like an anchor, or a water carrier, as Didier Deschamps was called, in kind of setting up plays and receiving the ball and kind of spraying passes out into the midfield. And I'm worried that if he gets injured, because he is 33, they're not going to have a player that can do that as well as him. Of course, they've got Delph, but I don't know who else to go from there, really, that's defensive enough to fill that position. That's the only thing I'm worried about. But both teams have really strengthened and look really strong, and that's why I think they'll go head-to-head. Last season, of course, Manchester City got 100 points, Liverpool got 75, so that might be a bit of a struggle to gain 25 points on Manchester City this year, but I think they can do. I really do think that. Head-to-head as well, Manchester City did beat Liverpool once, but Liverpool beat them the rest of the time, of course, beating them over 2 legs in the Champions League quarter-final, and being the first team to beat them, of course, 4-3. And as I said, Liverpool were only one of 4 teams to beat City last season, those being, of course, Wigan, Man United, Basel, and Shakhtar Donetsk. So, sorry, only one of 5 teams. My mistake. But, yeah, I think if Liverpool can beat them last season, I don't see why they can't beat them this season. It's going to be a really interesting title race. Any other teams challenge? I don't think they can. Maybe Chelsea if the Sarification gets completed midway through the season. Other than that, I don't think Tottenham can challenge that much because they don't have the depth for me. Manchester United might be able to challenge if Jose can kind of sort out things. I don't know how else to put that because he's dithering around really, and he just put his foot down really and say, I'm manager, I'm going to do this, I don't care what people think, I'm doing what's best for the team. But that's not coming out of the Manchester United camp at the moment, so I don't know if they can get a title challenge on. The only thing that I can think that might kind of swing the title race maybe to Manchester City over Liverpool is, of course, they've got experience, Manchester City, of winning a title. Liverpool don't. But then again, Liverpool only had 8 players, including Shaqiri and Alisson, at the World Cup, whereas Manchester City had the most, I think, with 12, and that might have an effect maybe down the line in the season when Champions League games and Premier League games and Cup games come thick and fast, because of course lots of those players won't have had a rest, and Liverpool don't have as many players that have been to the World Cup, so that might be a factor. But otherwise, this is going to be a really exciting title race, and I really look forward to seeing who's in it. I hope Liverpool are in it, to be honest. I like to see Liverpool challenge a title, but I do think it's going to be a 2-race horse this time out. So, on to our last topic. To prove we are not just a Premier League podcast, we're going to be looking elsewhere abroad to look at leagues that I'm excited in seeing and anything else that I'm kind of looking at. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tuchel at PSG this season. Of course, Thomas Tuchel was the ex-Borussia Dortmund manager, and he is said to be a master tactician. He doesn't have the same clout as managers such as Zinedine Zidane or Carlo Ancelotti have, but he does have a mastermind, and it'd be interesting to see if he can influence players such as Neymar, Mbappe, Cavani and all the top players at PSG to get them playing his way and his style, because he is a bit of an unknown manager, a bit unproven, hasn't done a lot in his career, so it's a bit of a leap for him, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how PSG do under him and how they do in the Champions League, because to be honest, I think Ligue 1 is a done deal for them already. Seeing their victory in the I think the Champions Trophy, basically the equivalent of the Community Shield against Monaco, where they thrashed them 5-0. So I think the league's almost wrapped up unless Lyon or Marseille can pull something out of the bag. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in the Champions League and if he can improve that of the job that, of course, Unai Emery did. Of course, gotta go to Italy. Love Italian football. It's just behind English football for me. I love watching it. I adore it. I would love to class myself one day as an Italian football expert, and I would love to star in a show featuring Italian football. But that's a story for another day. But I am really looking forward to Serie A this season. We've got Juventus signing a world star player in Ronaldo. We've got Roma signing some young players like Patrick Kluivert and some other stars like Nzonzi. We've got Inter and AC splashing the cash and bringing in big players like Higuain and Vasalco from Atletico Madrid for Inter. It just looks so exciting this year. Of course, you've got Lazio and you've got Fiorentina also in the mix. It's just going to be amazing Serie A next season, and I cannot wait to see teams such as Juventus and Roma collide in Rome with Ronaldo and Patrick Kluivert and Dzeko playing. It's just going to be so brilliant to watch, and of course I hope Roma come out on top, but that's my bias coming out. Not sure where else to watch, but I might be looking at Turkey because, of course, they had a very interesting title race last season, but it's hard to watch Turkish football. Of course, Bafétimbi Gomis, ex-Swansea player, plays out there. I think with the new TV deals becoming weird, with BT losing some of the European football, like Italian football, I might have to go online to watch my football. And I think the package that the obviously the new TV company offer includes Swedish football. So you never know, I might be watching Malmo next season and might become a Swedish football expert. But who knows, really? If you do follow European football, go. Do comment where you're going to be watching your football from and whether you're going to kind of swap packages to watch new football. Elsewhere, if you're looking for other football not in Europe, you can of course look at the MLS, and the MLS is in mid-flow at the moment. And of course, if you want to check out an MLS podcast, you can do in the description below. Not in the description, no, but you can check out on our YouTube channel. As for everything, actually, don't check in the description, just check out on our YouTube channel. But yeah, and of course we can't go without talking about the Championship or League One either. Both Gillingham for Jake and me with Swansea, both our teams have done very well in Championship and League One respectively. Swansea have made it 2 wins out of 2, beating Sheffield United on the opening game of the season 2-1 away, and then beating Preston 1-0. Brilliant start for us. I'm a bit concerned about centre-back wise in the kind of midfield with us only having one senior centre-back, but with the loan window being shut on the 31st of August, we've got a bit of time to potentially get a loan in secured. I'll be very worried if we don't. But as for Gillingham, I'm not sure who they played the first game. I think they played Accrington Stanley and Burton. They drew to Accrington Stanley and beat Burton, which is a big game because Burton, of course, came down from the Championship. So, it looks like Gillingham and Swansea will be doing well this season, and I hope your teams are doing well as well. But this kind of brings our podcast to an end. I hope you have enjoyed it. I, of course, have been Sam Turner. Enjoy your footballing weekend. Don't forget to be awesome, and see ya.